And about every 6 to 8 weeks is when I need a 1 to 2 day disconnect my brain. Even that's like a weekend, right? Of just not thinking about anything. That's something that's really good to help with balance. So yeah, with me, I mean, I think being able to turn it off. There's too many facets moving. There's too many granulations. Like it's just too much to where you're still trying to figure out the solution as to all the data that you're processing. So sometimes you can't turn it off for a while, but learning to put it down, to walk away, that it's going to be like 8 hours is not going to change anything. But 8 hours with a fresh brain versus 8 hours with a tired brain will change something.
Welcome to A Founder's Life, and I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. On this show, we dive into the real stories behind the highs and lows of entrepreneurship and how we pursue a more balanced and meaningful life along the way. This podcast is sponsored by Thanks, helping founders like us scale with reliable remote talent. I'll share more about that later. But if you email founders@thanks.com with the subject of Founder's Life, you'll get $1,000 off your first month. Now, I'm excited to be joined by Katie Walker today. Katie, it's great to have you here. Can you please kick things off by introducing yourself to the audience?
Fueled by wind and additional gasoline sometimes. So learning about the life of an entrepreneur, I feel like I've been actively doing that almost on a daily level.
I think it is a permanent learning journey. The entrepreneurial journey is all about ducking and diving and weaving. There's no straight path.
It's the adaptability for sure. And I think, Leah, one of the big things I've learned is the timelines. Like initially you have a business plan, you have timelines, and then you just don't see everything that's going to start coming into play. And when growth starts coming into those business plans, some of it's good, some of it's bad, and you can still hit your goals, but it's not always going to be on the timelines that you originally thought because you couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, I mean, business plans and timelines can be useful and have a place, and they are out of date 10 seconds after they're written.
Yes. I've had people say you have to make a budget for the next 3 to 5 years and you have to stick to that. So the medical clinic that I opened, right, it's for mental health, and it's a primary focus on ketamine, but then it's also with psychedelics. So talk about true trailblazing. It's learning how to go against probably the largest business model in the world, which is US healthcare. And then it's also learning to try to address pre-made path. That's different than when you come in and you have a great idea. And not only is it a great idea, but it's going to save lives. So you're dealing with life and death every day, but there is no path. So, there's a lot that goes into that can be significantly stressful, not only to me, but also the lovely individuals that work with me and for me and everything else. Like they're all just as bold as I am because they're taking kind of this blind step on, well, let's try to figure it out. And let's try to figure it out is easier said than done. So that's something, especially with entrepreneurs when they're out there and they feel kind of lost. It's like, keep going. And eventually the path will be shown to either keep going or to, kind of pull back or whatever else. And I think that's a big piece. I think a lot of entrepreneurs quit before they get to the finish line or to where the next step's supposed to take place.
And tell us a little more about the path that led you to where you are today and a little more about your business and about the clinics.
So unlike the mental health system that we know that's taken place since, the 1800s, 1900s, expecting that we just go down this path and we have to manage our mental health and it just keeps getting worse, ketamine accidentally showed us that the brain can regenerate on its own. So at one time we used to think the liver was the only organ that could regenerate. Well, now we know that the brain can regenerate. So we're seeing people heal from their mental health issues, whether that's anxiety or depression or PTSD, anxiety, insomnia, OCD, ADHD, like all these things, right? When the brain gets off, we can get it back on track. And when we say that it's healing, we actually have scans that we're doing now with the brain. So it could be MRIs and PET scans and all these different pieces. And it's actually showing that the brain is having healing capacity. So when I saw that in 2017, I was actually in a brain surgery case and I was reading about ketamine. I was like, there's no way this is real. There's no way this is real. And so it was saying like after one ketamine infusion, which is 40 minutes long, right, that it was taking away suicidality 98% of the time. Like, there's no way this exists. In 2018 was when I opened the clinic and I was like, well, I'll work part-time at the hospital, part-time at the clinic. And Leo, I started seeing such amazing transformations with people that it's been my true passion since then. So I'm very passionate about ketamine. That's what I know the most. I've been maybe around 20,000 people, but then all the other psychedelics as well. We're seeing if you can kind of take the brain out of its environment, give it the appropriate support structures, and then help it to understand kind of that walking path going forward. You can live a hugely higher quality of life. It's taken away like chronic pain syndrome. So we're seeing that pain and mental health are directly related to each other. If we can heal the mental health, the pain gets better. If we can heal the pain, the mental health gets better. And so what we're having to do, right? And you know this from being an entrepreneur, we're having to try to sell the vision that your brain can heal. And the world doesn't know that yet. So with the company, Revitalist is the company that I created. At one time, and you want to talk about entrepreneurial stuff, at one time I had VC guys come in. They wanted me to open up 52 clinics in 2 years. I was gung-ho about all that. I said, let's go. I like a good challenge. I had 10 clinics open in 7 months, but we were getting ready to start opening 2 a month. So we were on track to still meet, right, our goal. And they wanted to start shutting clinics down. Literally, I opened up the 10th clinic and it was like 3 weeks later, the venture capital guy said, yeah, we're done. Like, we don't want to, we don't want to do this anymore. And I was head first into all of this, right? And my team was, everybody was excelling. They were doing the best they could do with this business model. And we were so close to being in the black. So that was when they wanted to start shutting down the clinics. We have therapists that work with our providers. They wanted to start breaking the business model and taking the therapists out of that business model. So it was really, really confusing, Leo. And I didn't understand necessarily what was going on. And now that I've been around the sector a little bit longer and I've had to fight to keep this company alive, is a lot of people see there's huge value in it. But I've had to learn, and this really helped me. I look at each person, that each person is their own business and each person has their own mission, vision, and values, right? So that person's mission, vision, and values, while I think they're coming in to promote the company's mission, vision, and values, that's not always the case. And that's what kind of happened to me with that venture, the VC piece. So I had 10 clinics. I had to quickly shift because I lost the VC group because I wasn't doing what they wanted me to do. And I ended up, so now I have 3 clinics in 2 states. We do work in the British Virgin Islands with retreat centers down there. I'm trying to advance with clinics down there as well. But hopefully with the whole RFK piece in the US, we'll be able to start scaling much more rapidly soon. But it was a complete reset. So I went from a clinic that I was doing part-time and then to full-time to 10 clinics back to 3 clinics and a slinky effect, right? And not only a slinky effect on the company, but a slinky effect on my physical health, my mental health, my emotional health, my spiritual health. Did she stay sane? But 2, also all the people around me that were involved but didn't really know what was going on. There's been the people who really kind of know what's going on. They've been very, very supportive. The people who don't really know what's going on, they have been so terribly mean about this, right? Like the accusations, right? That I reallocated funds for myself, that I bought a yacht, that I, that I'm a failure. Like I've had other practitioners come to me in front of other practitioners and announce that I'm a failure and that they were embarrassed to know me, right? And like none of this has failed at all. It's still progressing, but to reset is not a failure. Resetting is another growth curve that you have to do. And when you hear there's a growth curve, it's not always progression. It's like, all right, pull back, reset yourself, and now move forward, right? And a lot of people just do not understand that. But gosh, the words that people use can be so damning. And people are so cruel, so cruel. So it's been really interesting to learn kind of that general 360 of it all.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a powerful model, but have been on quite some roller coaster. I think it's, I'm guessing a lot of the people being negative aren't entrepreneurs. And I say that because the entrepreneurial journey has successes and failures. I mean, most successful entrepreneurs have had failures, whether that be complete failures or whether it be, failures within the same business. It's the nature of being an entrepreneur. It's rare that it's all go all the way up. There's ups and downs. I've had plenty of successes and plenty of failures.
Yeah. And people don't, I mean, I don't understand it. Right. And I've been in it. I'm starting to understand it more because I've just had a lot more exposure, But to state that I've hit rock bottom on myself personally is a minimum statement. I've hit rock bottom several times to where it's like, can I get up again? Like I told somebody, I said, I feel like I keep throwing myself in a UFC match. I'm like, just get back in there. You just keep going, right? And I've lost, right? I mean, I've lost a lot of things, but when you lose things, you also regain, right? But you really got to believe in what you're doing, I think, in order to be successful. But two, you got to be a little bit stubborn minded, I think, because a lot of people who give advice, I'm sure you know this, Leo, if you start deviating from the plan that you originally created, a lot of people are like, nope, stop, just stop it now. There's no point in that. It's like, no, when you deviate, you readapt, right? You recenter yourself. You make a new business plan. You make a new budget. You keep the mission alive by constantly moving your chess pieces. That's what you do.
Again, that's the entrepreneurial journey. I agree. It's evolving. A business plan rarely survives launch. It continues to evolve, but that's the nature of it, and that should be the advantage of being an entrepreneur rather than a staid corporate. And then talk to us a little bit about what family means to you.
So family, right? That's a really good point. My family, it's pretty small. Like I had lost a brother when I was younger, and I lost my mother 3 years ago. So my generational family is my father, who's super supportive. I was married with this company, and then I got divorced because my husband, who we went into this, and it was a commitment, right, from both of us. And he told me, he's like, and I was. And then he was like, I don't want this. I don't want this anymore. I want you to stop. Like, I'm done. So anyway, that was when we decided it'd be best to him do his life, me do my life. Right. And then I do have a 15-year-old daughter. So my 15-year-old daughter was 8 when we started all of this. And I've kept her informed with a lot of things, as we go, but she's seen me through my stress, like ups and downs and Mom, are you okay? Kind of stuff. And she's been great. And it's been really interesting because even though she's seen me through highs and lows and everything else, mostly lows, I would say, mostly lows and pulling myself up. She actually wants to go, to school to do business, and she's in an entrepreneurial club. But she sees the freedom. And I think that's a really big piece, right? Being an entrepreneur is you do have a lot of freedom, but you are much more disciplined than if you were working, kind of a normal day-to-day job. So I think family is something that it's hard to balance both initially. And I've tried to reflect on this as of late. I think once you get that base built, like, with my company, like I don't have to be in the day-to-day operations. I oversee things I'm aware of, but I don't have to be in every conversation with the company. I have a team around me that now helps with a lot of that. So I think that really, really helps with the balance. But I think with family, I think you can quickly lose your focus. And that's when you kind of start separating yourself, distancing yourself from your family. So I think that's something to be aware of. Have like conversations to where everyone is on the same page of what to expect. I think that's the most helpful thing because you know this, I'm sure you just get lost.
It's very easy to, and the entrepreneurial journey is not an easy one, not for the faint of heart. So yeah, it's about taking a decision where to prioritize and finding a way to really have that balance. And what's health look like for you? So obviously you're in the mental health business, but what does health look like for you personally?
Personally, health looks like to me, I think that's something that I really focus on is emotional health, and that I think a lot of people just don't even bring into consideration. I think we're slowly getting better with that, but like emotional intelligence, that's something that I'm really big on that I think helps people to stay healthy. I think the more we're aware of our emotional health, I think that kind of ties into our physical health as well. Now, me personally, I played sports throughout college, so I knew health. I knew physical health. But in 2020, when my company went public, until recently, I wasn't going to the gym at all. Right. And I was just emotionally exhausted, mentally exhausted every day because I'd tell people that my health was just keeping my brain kind of engaged and focused and all those different pieces. So recently I got back right into working out and being a little bit more active. And that's a huge difference too, right? That's the balance. And I think that's a big piece too, Leo, is people don't understand how much you get off balance until you start rebalancing again. And that's when you start kind of getting that greater insight.
True. And working out does create positive endorphins. I think, however much you don't want to work out is why you need to work out because it actually does help. mentally. And, it's no question around that. What do you like to do for fun?
What do I like to do for fun? I'm just rediscovering that too. So I do have a guy who's super special to me in my life, and that's helped a ton, right, with the rebalancing aspect. So, I think intentional time spending with people that you care about, I think that's fun, I guess. But then also, being outdoors, having downtime, just spending time with friends has been really special. And even to now, like my 15-year-old daughter, she's starting to get into the high school area to where, kids are starting to come around. And that's fun with me, is engaging kind of with the younger ones, kind of hearing their insight and their viewpoints and trying to be a little bit of a mentor to them, maybe stepping in to a mentorship role that I didn't necessarily have. So those are things that I appreciate. Of course, I love travel, but travel can become somewhat of a nuisance when you're having to travel a lot. So the last few years I've traveled a lot. So it's kind of been nice to not travel as much. But yeah, I enjoy that too. And I think, especially from the entrepreneurial piece, taking yourself out of the environment that you're constantly in, even for a day or two, is so healthy to reset your mind.
So for you, what does that balanced life look like? And is it taking yourself out sometimes? What is it that's a balanced life for you?
I noticed that a few years ago, I noticed that that I can stay focused pretty well for about 6 to 8 weeks. And about every 6 to 8 weeks is when I need a 1 to 2 day disconnect my brain. Even that's like a weekend, right? Of just not thinking about anything. That's something that's really good to help with balance. So yeah, with me, I think being able to turn it off. There's too many facets moving. There's too many granulations. Like it's just too much to where you're still trying to figure out the solution as to all the data that you're processing. So sometimes you can't turn it off for a while, but learning to put it down, to walk away, that it's going to be like 8 hours is not going to change anything. But 8 hours with a fresh brain versus 8 hours with a tired brain will change something. So I think having those time blocks has really helped me with my balance too. It's like my daughter actually taught me about time blocks, to where she says, give me 10 things you need to work on. And then like, all right, how much time does each of these things take? Okay, well, let's put it here, here, and here, and here. And then this is where in between that we're actually going to do something and not think about it. It's been great. Like, so whoever taught her that in school, it's a really good learning lesson that adults should learn too. But that's helped me a lot with balance as well.
That's always good to know. We can learn things from our kids and actually still learn something in school. And what's one piece of advice you'd give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
2 things, and then maybe one of them is not as inspirational, but it was to me, like when you feel that way. One, I think the biggest piece is don't quit, right? Like it's not always your option. It is your option, I guess, to quit, but the world, the universe, whatever you want to say, it's going to lead you into a direction to where there are going to be no more options, or there are going to be a ton of options, right? And a lot of people I've learned quit. And when he told me that, that's really stuck in my mind, especially when I'm like, I can't do this. And it's like, it just goes back to the basics. Well, what do you need to survive, right? And you go back to, you got to pay payroll. Like your team does this initially, like, what do you need for payroll? What do you need for leases? What do you need for supplies? Like, what are your basic necessities? Because as an entrepreneur, we get so distracted with so many good ideas that will drain your purse overnight. So you've got to be careful with those ideas and treating them more as a pastime hobby sometimes with those ideas, expecting that you can't take away the revenue, or you can't take away the funds to the revenue producers of the company. Otherwise, your vision may fail, right? You do have to have financial rewards behind your mission to keep it going, to keep it thriving. So that's what I would say with that piece.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on today and sharing your journey with the audience. I think you've certainly been through some highs and lows, and hopefully lots more highs to come.
I hope so. I feel like I put in my time. That's it. This is the most expensive school I've ever not been to.
Well, thank you for listening to today's episode. And if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and leave a review.